Tell me when.
Yeah, go ahead. You're
all right.
set.
Hi. Thank you for coming. I actually, my name is Mary Sweeney, and I own and run an organization called Way of the Wild in Colorado. Most of my work is with children. It's an outdoor program for kids. We focus on, to some extent, on survival skills, but to a larger extent, just nature connection and learning things like fishing and archery and some bushcraft skills, things like that. I've been studying survival skills for about 20 years, and I've been teaching them for about 18, off and on, and in different kinds of settings to different people. I have come to, over the course of my life, this sense that survival has been a big part of my life, not in the way that we think of in modern days, like, all the different survival shows, but more like in my personal life, in my childhood and growing up, and as I moved through my life, there was a lot of moments where I felt like I had a survival mindset, like I needed to do certain things in order to survive. I'm an older person. Because of the many things that have happened to me over the course of my life, I've learned a certain mindset about dealing with adversity and trauma in my life. I'm just like you guys, like this is a very challenging time we're in right now, and I'm going to be asking you some questions. But I am just like you in the sense that we're all equal here. We're all human beings who have knowledge and experience we can bring and contribute to situations. But there are certain principles that help you in situations where you're uncomfortable, you feel like something's really at risk for you. What I want to say about this is that the way that I grew up and the way that I lived my life has taught me to look at things a certain way, and it really dovetailed with this whole concept of survival. And I didn't choose to go into survival skills because I was really drawn to them. I wasn't a prepper. I just got sick in my late 40s, and my doctor happened to be a survival skills teacher, and he wanted me to spend more time outdoors. And he suggested I learn these skills. And so I did. I wasn't particularly drawn to them at first, but it really freed me in terms of how I see the world. So many of you will already have maybe you have some background in this yourselves. I'm going to share with you what I've been doing recently in order to feel more comfortable in my own skin and in order to contribute to my community of people. I think I want to ask you a question, and we don't have a lot of time to get everybody's answers, but I think you're here, I'm going to guess, because you have some uneasiness about what's going on. It may not be full-on fear and panic. Different people are responding to it differently, but would you say that it would be reasonable to suggest that there's a certain unease you're living with right now? You can answer by saying yes, no, nod your heads.
People are muted too, so you might not get that response that easily from people.
I don't see their pictures either, so I can't be sure if they're nodding their heads, but you probably can, right?
No, not some people are just in by the phone. I'm unmuting people right now, so if people want to respond, they can.
Okay. Well, if I'm incorrect in that assertion, just let me know.
Can she hear me if I talk?
Yep, she can
hear you.
Now. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm mostly just looking for information to share with other people.
Okay.
And someone wrote, yes, tons of fear everywhere, loads of fear everywhere.
Cool. Good. That's enough. I mean, we're probably, it's a reasonable thing for me to think that this is the case. What I'm going to share with you today is my personal experience and my personal knowledge. And what I will say is, you could talk to another person, another teacher who may have a different take on this. There's lots of survival skills teachers out there talking about this right now. Some of them are much more fear-based in their perspective. I am not. I am also uneasy, but I know that the most important survival skill a person has at any point in time is their inner knowing, it's their intuition, and their attitude towards the circumstances they are in. Now, in full disclosure, I can't always access that right away either. But if I can't get to it right away, eventually when I do access it, I change my brainwave pattern and everything gets calmer. That's when my mind, my logical mind, and my heart knowing are able to communicate well and answers come to me, right? So one of the things that people are struggling with right now is what to do because of their anticipation. I'm going to guess that this is true for a lot of people. If I'm wrong, just let me know. But I feel like in my own life, my concerns are financial. My concerns are potentially health, although I'm in really amazing health. My concerns are for the people I love, for the people that I can't help right now. My concerns are for social unrest occurring because of people's fear. Things like that are what are concerning me. But it really comes down to the fact that my life is being restricted and curtailed because I can't just do all the things I was doing. And some of those things may directly affect my well-being in the future. But my primary suggestion to you, if you want to have a survival mindset in whatever situation you're in, whether it's this situation right now or something like you've had a serious car accident and you're out on the road, the primary thing you need to do is ask yourself the question, am I okay right now? And if you are okay right now, you're not in a survival situation. So every circumstance that you find yourself in where you are feeling overwhelmed by whatever is happening, and a lot of what's happening is messages we're getting from the internet, we're getting from, to some extent, from other people. We're sharing information, but a lot of information is coming from a variety of different places. Some of it may or may not be accurate. That information is having an impact on how we're seeing the world. A lot of it is fear-based, frankly. If your life is not threatened in this moment, you're not really in a survival situation. You're in a survival situation where if you don't make the right decision right in the moment, and you don't have time to make the right decision, then you've got to have a certain way of thinking about things. And that's a different set of skills. The set of skills I'm talking about right now are you okay? And if you're okay, then the next thing you need to do is make sure that you are calm. You need to find a way to calm yourself. Many of us have practices we do in our life, whether it's walking in nature, breathing exercises, yoga, martial arts, whatever you do to calm yourself down so that you can empty your brain and access your intuitive knowing is going to help you navigate the challenges that you perceive in your world. You don't need to be worried about whether or not you're going to have the money you need a month from now, or whether or not you're going to do business a month from now. You need to worry about what's going to happen in the next week, okay? So rein it in a bit and look at your life as being now here in the moment. That's a strong survival skills ability, the number one, because that is the thing that will get people killed more quickly. They lose their ability to think because they're overwhelmed, they panic, and they can't make good decisions. That's what you want to access. And then it's basically a decision tree. If you are safe, you're safe. If you're not safe, then you need to do something different. Those are the kinds of things that I've been bringing to this situation. I'm communicating with a community of people who are survival skills teachers and survivalists who come from all kinds of different backgrounds, have all different levels of skill. I mean, I'm just on their websites and on their Facebook pages and stuff like that because I interact with them. And I'm getting everything from this is dire, the world's coming to an end, to, hey, let's wait and see what happens, and everything in between. So what I'm saying to you folks is that you already have a lot of the knowledge you need to solve the kinds of problems that you're dealing with right this minute and the ones that will come up moving forward. There's ways to deal with things like having enough food, having enough water, having a first aid supply, having maybe your gas in your car filled, reducing the amount of time you spend in situations that can be potentially dangerous to you, and looking at what happens if the electricity goes out. What happens if you lose your water? What can you do to sort of move in the direction of planning for those things? I could give you some suggestions about what to do, and I might do that if you ask me to, but if I say you need 30 days of water and you can't get 30 days of water, then you're gonna be like, oh, I don't have 30 days of water. Don't worry about that. Let me find out what your real concerns are and think about how long you think you need to have something, and then use your survival rubric. Am I safe? Am I not? If I'm not safe, what do I have to do to go back to balance, safety?
That's why I wanted to go back because we have people joining, and I want to go back to what you said before about if you're safe right now, go back to calming yourself.
So things that you can do to calm yourself are things like, I mean, truly, I got lost in the woods one time, and it was the one thing that I remember. I was with my dog. My dog was a wonderful animal. She was very sweet, and she put up with me really well. So she was very happy to be out in the woods, lost with me. And I noticed how calm she was. And all of a sudden it dawned on me that the sun was going down, and what time I left the house, I knew, and what time of year it was. And I said, oh, wow, if I just walk that way, I'm going to hit a road because I'll be heading slightly northwest and I'll be in the right place. I walked out in 60 seconds because I calmed down enough to let something come to me that told me what to do, which is this sort of like innate knowledge that a lot of people already carry just from living on the planet. All right, so calm. You must find ways to calm yourself, whether you have to do it every 60 seconds or not. It's one day at a time, 1 minute at a time. You're like, all right, I just heard something really scary. You know, more people are getting sick. Maybe some people are dying. I'm starting to get really afraid. Okay, calm myself. Am I okay? Yes, I'm okay. What do I have around me? Safe house, food, water, whatever I need, right? If you have those things, good. If you don't, then I have to find a way to go out and get them. All right. So this is a matter of using your intuition to assess the situation accurately, opening yourself up to the innate knowledge that's available to you through this process, and then making decisions based on that. We're all uncomfortable. I know I am. And I'm getting emails and texts from people talking about their level of discomfort. The best we can do is to access the power of our own inner knowing and access the power of our already innate knowledge. All right, so can I stop there? Because you can do deep breathing, you can do yoga, you can go for a jog and just stay away from people. If you're running off trail or on trails someplace and you're not running into very many people, you're probably safe. So whatever it is for you that you do to calm you, that's what you want to do. From there, a lot of this is going to be straight up logic. I'm going to stop.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're starting to get some questions. So there's one that came in the chat. And Mary, if you want to see the chat on our window, just on the bottom, or anyone, click chat. If you can't see the word chat, click more and it'll show you chat. And then the chat should open up and you can see. So there was a question, what are the risks around water? I haven't felt the need to buy bottled water, but many others are.
Okay, so I want to go back to saying that I don't know everything. I only know what I'm doing, and I have some.
Maybe why don't you just go ahead, if you new people joined, maybe just give us tidbits about your background again so people know the context from which you're speaking. And then also you didn't mention your psychology background and things like that too. Right,
okay, so my name is Mary Sweeney. I run an organization called Way of the Wild. We use survival skills in order to help kids. It's kids empowerment and some adults that come along who are interested, and also nature connection. That's my background. My career was in the areas of education and psychology. I was a psychology professor. I studied wilderness therapy, and I became very interested in doing more wilderness work about 20 years ago because of some health issues I had. I started studying survival skills because it was available to me, not because I was particularly drawn to it, but it turned out to be a good thing. It was very empowering for me. So that's my background. I really have had very much a survival mindset all of my life because of my background and my experience growing up. It was just my way of getting through, having a certain mindset on how to be safe. That's my life taught me. So I bring that to situations, and that's what I use a lot of times to make decisions. What I've learned over the course of many years is that having that kind of mindset is helpful, but it's much more helpful if you can find ways to calm yourself so you're not constantly hypervigilant, basically, you know? And so when you can calm yourself, you can get more information because you're accessing your heart knowing. Your heart knowing is your intuitive knowing. Many of you are going to know this already, so forgive me for telling you things you already know. But this is what you want to be accessing. When I find myself getting revved up because what's going on in the world and my concerns about my family, my own health, my finances, the state of the world, I take time to sit down, I breathe. I do breathing exercises, meditation exercises. I happen to do Kundalini yoga and Qigong. Other people may have other methods. I go for walks in the woods. I'm very comfortable doing that. Some people may not be. But those are the kinds of things that I do. I calm myself. I sometimes will limit the amount of contact I have with other people that are really revved up, but not because I'm afraid of contracting the virus. It's because I'm afraid of their fear. Their fear makes me uncomfortable. So I need to find ways to comfort myself so that I get the right messages that tell me what to do. That's where I'm coming from. I'm a survival skills teacher. I'm going to share what I know that might be of use to you. Is that
Okay, great. I want to repeat. Yeah, that was great. That's great background and context. And just for people that are joining the call too, we're recording this. So if you want, you can go back and listen. I'm going to be posting it. And if Mary's good with it, we'll post it on YouTube too. So
that's fine. I also want to tell you that I practice intuitive energy work. I learned a method called Ewan method many years ago. I do practice it regularly in my life. People will call me, I'll work on them. That is one of the things that has ramped up my intuition immensely. And it also calms me because I can't help them unless I can get into a neutral mindset. Calm is about getting into a neutral mindset. Empty your brain, be present to whatever's going on in the moment, and you'll be in a calm state. You'll know it. You'll automatically go, oh, I'm not charged anymore. All hell's breaking loose around me and I am not charged. This is not an uncommon feeling for me. So there you go.
It's great. So Amy asked a question. So she asked, what are the risks around water? I haven't felt the need to buy bottled water, but many others are. So
I'll tell you what I am doing. There is the potential for this situation becoming, for things becoming more difficult in terms of our infrastructure and in terms of electricity, water, getting the services we need. It might not, but there's the potential for that situation, mostly because if the people who are in charge of getting us those things suddenly can't man those places, we could find ourselves needing water. What I've been doing is having enough water in my house that I would use anyway. I use bottled water. There's a couple of local springs. I go and I fill up 5-gallon bottles. In the next week, my plan of action is to have 20 gallons of water in my house. If I went out and bought that at a local store, it would cost me $20. If I bought it reverse osmosis and put it in containers I owned, it would probably cost me $5. It is a minimal expense for something that I will use anyway over the course of time and has a use to me. So yes, I may not go to like Costco or Walmart and buy it today because I'll be competing with thousands of other people. I'm more inclined to like stop at little places like the local gas station where they will have water in their icebox. Or if I know of a spring, I'll go fill containers. This is like, I would even make it kind of an adventure. Let's go up to the spring and get water, just like have some water in the house just in case you need fresh, clean water because it's not available to you on the tap a day or two, or that's it. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to say too, so you want to think about who are the people that you know that live more in the wilderness. Like I'm someone that lives outside of town and I have water from a spring. So the people that know me, right, and whatever distance we want to keep, I have access to endless water. So you want to think about things like that.
Right. So in your case, Laureli, you don't really have to worry about water because if you had a water filter, you would never, you're more likely to worry about getting too much water than too little water. So water should not be an issue for you as long as you have a good water filter with maybe an extra carbon filter to put in it. This is a cheap one, but you can get they're anywhere from $40 up to $80 and you can get them at REI, or sometimes you can get them on Craigslist, or somebody will have one. And if you're in a community of people who are outdoor people, then you could probably get one person who says, yes, I got a water filter, let's go get water. Again, there are moments when you can come together to do things without having too much close proximity to each other, have your 6-foot rule, and take care of this need. These take time, these things, but they're simple. They're simple things, and they're things that, like water, you'll drink that water over time. If you have good water at your house, buy containers and fill your containers so that you have some water. I think 20 gallons, theoretically, that would be like 15 days of water. I'll probably have 20, but I think if I had 30, I'd have abundance for me. And here's the thing, if I run out of water, I'm gonna go out and get some more. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, because right now, up to the time when I don't have water, I'm not in a water need situation. Go ahead.
And I think when you say when you run out, it's when it's getting low, but not putting, if you can think about everything that you might need out in the future, and then you're in that stress situation again, and you're not able to be calm, right? And not able to know what you need in the moment, right?
And you could run out of water for a day and you're probably not gonna die. unless you just lose your mind and run around like a mad person. If you stay calm, you're going to be fine. You're going to be, oh yeah, I got to get some water. Okay, I got to think this one through. What's the best place to go? How to get there? You're going to walk outside and go to the pond. I mean, the rest of us are going to do something else. But if you're in a city, they'll be telling you what to do to get water if it comes to that. And you should think ahead of time of where you can get water in case nobody tells you. Okay.
Right. So having a plan more than taking action. And if you take action, take a small action now. Don't take a big action.
That's actually a very good way to say it. I wish I'd thought of it. But yes, having a plan and taking a small action is very good. So you need water and you need food. All right. And you need cover because it is winter. So if you can, it's good to have a way of keeping yourself warm. Now, your first level of warmth is going to be your clothing. I mean, I've been in situations out in the woods where it got cold and I stuffed leaves in my jacket, There's things you can do to insulate what you have. You don't necessarily have to go out and buy more. You can just wear more and you can figure out what you have in your house that can help you.
See, this doesn't have. It's wild. You have so many tips like this, things that people would never think of, like putting leaves in your clothes to make some insulation.
Or newspaper works too. You just need stuff that you can stuff in that will help you keep warmer. And again, sometimes when you can calm yourself, you can hold a question and all of a sudden an answer will pop into your mind. It might be an hour and a half later, but you'll be, oh, why didn't I think of that right away? You don't think of it because your fear is telling you a different story. I want to say something else about the body. Admittedly, we're in a situation where we've got a highly contagious virus in our environment. And they're telling us that if we get within proximity of other people or we touch something those people have touched, we can contract that virus. We may not get as sick as the next person, but we can be a carrier. What I realized within a relatively short period of time is that I can't predict when I will touch something that someone who has the virus has touched. I could make that mistake very easily. I could forget very easily. I can do the universal precautions, hand washing, wear gloves, a variety of other things that you can do and lower my risk factor. But what I realized was the most effective way to protect my body was to boost my immune response. So since that time, I've made sure I had several things in my cabinet that could be useful to me. I've been using some of those prophylactically, like I will chew on OSHA. OSHA is available where you are too. The herbalists tell me that it is antiviral and that people use it for flu. I have used it in that way and have had good effects from it. I don't know that there's any research on it, and I'm not selling it. I'm just telling you what I do. I use OSHA. I also use colloidal silver, although I heard recently that there's a real knock against it, but it cleared up my allergies last fall. So I started using a little bit of that in a nasal spray form. Again, up to you, make your own choices about these things. I think it's worth reading a little bit about what you choose and then use your gut feeling. Is this the right thing for my body, the right thing for me? But one thing I also have done is I've cut almost all sugar out of my body. I mean, I've got some bacon. If I eat that in the next month, it has a tiny bit of sugar in it. But I don't eat any sugar because sugar causes your immune system to have to work harder. I try to limit the amount of additives that come into my body because then my body has to recognize and deal with those additives, and that energy is not going towards my immune response. In point of fact, sometimes you're better off not eating as much when you do get sick because your body has more resources. Eat enough, keep your strength up, but sometimes eating less is actually good for you. So,
You've got a few comments. You got to go ahead, and then when you want to take a break,
your body is your first defense. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to say, so some people are commenting they appreciate colloidal silver. Someone else commented that they've been meditating every day, leading guided meditations. It's so nice to be in a group vibe, right? Extremely helpful for getting back to neutral that you were speaking to. Someone else said, yeah, high glucose in the blood is not great now. So lots of people that are aligned with the way you see things.
I'm talking to people from Washington State, outside of the area of Seattle.
Some people on the call are in Colorado, some are in Washington, some are in Oregon of the people that I recognize. And then I don't know where everyone is from. Someone said, oh my gosh, I remembered. Oh, well, just different comments. Yeah, so go ahead. Anyone is welcome. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you can write a comment in the chat. Feel free. And
I don't
Mary,
wanna
some people might write directly to you, so just do look at your chat from time to time in case you get a private message.
I will, and also thank you for saying that because I wouldn't have looked. I also want to say I don't want to monopolize the time only by my experience. I want to use my experience to contextualize my answer for you. So I do want to give people time to ask their questions if they have any. Let's see.
And I have a comment, I'll make it someone anonymous, but it was someone mentioned that one time when they were cold, they did think about putting like plastic bags around them and newspaper. And so other people have been able to think of these things in the moment. I appreciate.
Plastic bags, the only problem with plastic bags is if there's any condensation, you'll get wet and then you'll get colder. So just make sure that you don't don't go to sleep with a plastic bag over your body and wake up wet. You want to make sure that you use them appropriately, okay? Just a thought.
Yeah, that's great. It was someone that was in the wet, in the cold, but yeah, that's great. So yeah, questions.
Oh, okay.
People have specific questions.
This is Satora. I have a question. How do you spell Oshia?
OSHA, OSHA. Yeah, it's just like Office of just like Office of Safety, Health and whatever.
You can get it as a tincture. It's a common way that people get it.
Yeah, I personally don't favor the tincture. I favor the herb, and I cut a little piece of the root off and I stick it in my cheek and leave it there all day long. And it's very antiviral. And it's also a bronchial dilator. And I've given it to people that were having asthma attacks, and it actually opens up their lungs. For the people that I've given it to, it's helped them.
It's great. I have a comment I want to make. So I've been taking a bunch of herbs kind of proactively, and I've been taking some OSHA, and I noticed actually that my nasal cavities and all that feel different. And I felt scared a little bit, like, am I having symptoms? But I'm having impacts from the herbs that I'm taking too. So I think also just the stress, like, am I not feeling well? Am I actually fine? What stress? I have some food allergies too. So it's like, because I know also the symptoms are so mild for people sometimes. So I fear, like, am I sick and I don't realize, right? And tests aren't available. So we're so many of us walking around and we don't know.
Can I speak to that? So that's one of the things that I think is important for a person to look at. If you are afraid that you are sick and you're not really having any severe symptoms,
and I should say, and I'm taking my temperature like at least 2 or 3 times a day. So I know exactly what that is of whether I have a fever.
I feel like on a personal level, unless I feel bad, I'm not, I don't want to be too worried about getting sick. So there's a number of things in our environment right now that will create fear in us. I mean, the reason that I'm talking to you all today is because, Laureli, when you posted that you were concerned about them closing the borders in Washington as a potential thing, you wanted to know if it was true. And that's a pretty drastic step for the government to take, and it would be sending a really strong message to people in Washington. And it would create a lot of fear as well. And that's when I reached out and said, I'd like to offer you a survivalist perspective. Again, when you go back to that basic beginning question, am I okay right now? If you're okay right now, focus on staying in that place as long as you can, because then you're not feeding the fear of something. And we know our thoughts are powerful, whether we like to admit it or not. Our thoughts are powerful. We can create negativity in our own lives by just staying stuck in negative thoughts. And it's not Pollyanna, it's the truth. I mean, if you can change your vibration, change your brainwave pattern, focus on feeling calmer, your entire life is going to be more relaxed, and you in truth, miraculous things when you can sustain this for a long time. I suspect that you all would tend to agree with that. So try not to focus on, it's one thing if I had a fever right now, I'd be concerned. But when I know I'm having an allergy response to something, I'm aware that if I've had this for 10 years and it's happening now, I'm thinking, this is not coronavirus. This is my allergies acting up. So you know, don't buy into the dominant fear paradigm. You know, just be like, okay, I got something to worry about here, but I'm not going to like let it dominate my capability, my strongest ability, which is my intuitive, rational capabilities.
And someone asked about where you're getting OSHA. I remember that there was an herb store in Boulder where I used to get dried pieces of OSHA, but I know
Yeah.
tinctures available more readily for people now. Where do you get the dried form?
There is a form of OSHA that grows in the around you in the mountains, and it grows in Oregon too. So I've seen it in good health food stores in Portland. I haven't seen it in like Whole Foods, but I've seen it in some of these little herbal
I do have it.
stores.
It's in Whole Foods and it's in PCC. It's in a lot of different places like that now. I know out
Herbal
here,
form?
Vitamin Life probably has it.
In an herbal form or in the tincture form?
Just the tincture. The tincture is common. I haven't seen the dried form in a long time.
I'm saying that they have the dried form in herb shops in Portland. I suspect that if you have an herbalist in your, I bet you the herbalist who lives in North Bend, if she doesn't have it in her store, she would know where to get it.
That's probably true. Yeah, I can.
I mean, she
reach
had
out when we're up here.
things. She had an amazing apothecary. I was very surprised for such a small town at what she chose to carry in her store, and I think that she.
This is Twin Peaks Wellness in North Bend. People are listening.
I think that's an example of a place where you could probably find it, or she would know where to find it.
And Athena mentioned Rebecca's in Boulder, so I know
yes,
you've probably been
that's
there,
right.
Mary.
Rebecca's going to carry it. Anybody who's in Boulder, if you get caught short, contact me, because if I can't get you some, I know how to get it for you. As long as it's not 5 feet of snow in the mountains, there's ways we could get some if we needed it. Or anybody who's in Colorado, really. I mean, it's all over the place here.
I think I've got a link online for Frontier Co-op. I don't know. So Mary, is it this is different? It came up in the search. It's spelled Gentian. That's not OSHA though. That's different, right?
That's gentian. Gentian is a different plant. Yeah, you want OSHA. OSHA is I think it's either a Native American or a Spanish name that was given to this plant. And Rebecca should have some, but it might be low right now. People who know what it is buy it up. She often rations it this time of year.
I put a link in the chat too. It looks like it's also referred to as bear root or snake root. That's an example.
Bear root,
there are a number
yes.
of different herbs.
Yeah, and there's other things you can take besides OSHA, although there is some controversy about elderberry now because of how it works on the body. You might want to research that. I don't know enough to speak to it, but I read something the other night about it that was like, oh, this may not be the best choice.
Just that it has some other side effects, or it's just not as effective.
How it works on the immune system may be
counterindicative or something.
It's not counterindicative. It's contradictory. It may actually accentuate the effects of the coronavirus based on some theoretical ideas of how it works in the body. We're talking about physiology right now. I didn't read all of it. I'd have to go back and read it in order to talk to you about it. I read enough to say, oh, I'm going to stay away from elderberry for a while. I have alternative products. I'm going to use those.
And I've got another question.
Yes.
So the question I struggle with regarding to staying in my power while being prudent is, where do I draw the line between preparing wisely in terms of gathering what I might need, and where's my preparation going overboard into the fear-driven place? Appreciate any insights. I do work every day with calming techniques and centering myself, and so I am feeling more centered, but still the fear is there sometimes.
So this is partly an intuitive process. If you're calm, let's say you're feeling calm all the time, and you're feeling at the same time that you need to have 50 gallons of water in your house. If that was me, I'd have 50 gallons. If you are finding that whatever tells you that you're not coming from a calm place when you're doing something, then you might want to rein back a little bit on what you're doing. What tells me I'm not in a calm place is when I suddenly notice I have tension in my upper body. It almost feels like my entire upper body will get tight. My shoulders, my arms, my upper chest. and my ability to breathe is restricted. And this could be just me walking around in my house. And when I feel that feeling, when I notice I feel that feeling, I immediately know that I'm coming from an anxiety place, a place where I feel like I'm not in control of something, a place where I feel threatened by something that isn't there or necessarily even real. And in that moment, I stop, I ground myself into my lower body, I take a breath. If I was in that place and I was in the grocery store and I started buying everything there, I'd be like, oh, I don't need all this stuff. And I don't have the money for it. So that's how I decide. If you feel calm, if you're very calm and you still think you need a lot of something, maybe you do. Is that helpful?
I think it probably is. And the person did right. Yeah, I got it. Make decisions from the place of calm.
Oh yeah, somebody asked a question about elderberry. I read online that elderberry works on, it's a genetic term, cyto something or other. It works on
Well, that's more my background. I can look it up.
yeah, you would know exactly what it is. I want to mention something else, not to get too far afield, but speaking of physiology, you should also look up 5G and its relationship to the outbreaks of pandemics, because that's going to be interesting reading too. Yeah, so because that does affect our voltage gated calcium channels, and they're in every cell of our bodies. So I'm reading more of the questions here. Make decision from place of calm. Yes, okay, great, that's good.
Yeah, I've been reading stuff to you, and your answer was helpful. The previous question. Yeah,
this is the biggest message I wanted to give folks, was that the number one survival skill, I don't care how much you've practiced, I don't care how many skills you know, I don't care. I mean, a lot of the stuff I'm reading online, you know, I love my brothers, they're great guys, but most of them are really macho, and it's like, I'm ready, you know? I mean, there are things that can happen to us when you see those survival, there are stories, there's one, just as an aside, there's a show that talks about people that survived in terrible circumstances, like being stuck on boats or, you know, being mauled by bears. And you look at their stories and you see the synchronicity and the experiences that happen to them that are like the hand of God in their lives, and they are not survivalists. You don't know what's going to happen necessarily. You can only prepare for what you think may happen. And then you have to accept that you're only human and you're doing the best you can. And you have to work on that calm, because not only are you helping you with that calm, you're helping the world with that calm. And right now, we need calm, because we're getting an awful lot that's telling us we shouldn't be. We're reacting to something without all of us actually getting the disease. And, you know, a lot of people will die, but a lot of people won't. I mean, thousands of people die every year anyway. And not to be glib, because I'm not being, but we're reacting to something like this. Imagine if the social order did break down, how panicky people would get then. So let's take this as an opportunity to learn something about ourselves and strengthen our own ability to deal with these situations, so that we can be the leaders, you know, helping people. Anything that I say to you that is useful, spread it with the idea in mind that, like, I'm not telling people to go out and drink bottles of colloidal silver because it will make them sick. They need to decide for themselves what's going to work for them. I use it and it works for me, but somebody else may have a problem with it. You have to do a little bit of research for yourself and decide on an intuitive level to some extent, is this okay for me? I'm opening up my business for parents who must work and can't get out of it and need somebody to watch their kids. I'm taking 4 kids, that's it. And I'm on like 100 acres that we roam over, right? And we're gonna have a lot of space between us. But, you know, some people will consider that to be risky, and that their kids should stay home in a house with 5 people, some of who are going out of the house and encountering people, and who knows what they're bringing back into the house. And the person that asked me to do this was a medical doctor whose kid needs coverage. Now, am I gonna help her out? Look what she's doing. I'm doing a very small thing. So, but I can, so I'm trying, you know?
It's great. I'm looking for the articles on elderberry, and there are just so many different articles out here. It's hard for me to find where it is, but
Don't do it. It's a lot of information right now.
if you
but,
have that link that suggests that it could be a problem, please feel free to send it to
I'll
me.
send
and
it to you.
take a
Yep,
look.
I sure will.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a question they want to ask? I can tell you a few other things that I can talk about that might be of help to you in the event of losing water and power, if you would like me to speak to that, because these are things.
I just
that
don't know
I've
what are the bigger, I'm trying to think of like what might be the bigger concerns for people too. Like, are there, just besides the typical like hand washing and,
So
people
the
are
other
making,
thing,
what other basic things like that if you have ideas?
I don't really want to talk too much about basic ideas because I think people are already getting inundated with that. What I'd rather do is talk about the things that people don't think. So let's talk about toilet paper, all right? I grew up in the era of cloth diapers, and people use cloth diapers and then they wash them with bleach and soap. If you find yourself stuck, I think that most people, if they were accessing their calm, would be, oh, I can cut up these rags and we'll be all set for a couple of weeks. It's not necessarily your preference, but there are other ways to deal with the situation. Hand washing, if you have alcohol, I've literally used a bleach and soap solution on my hands because I didn't have any hand washing material. That'll work. It doesn't have to be the gel hand washing. I mean, that's convenient, but it's not essential. I've used pine. I once cut myself when I was fishing in the woods, and I had a pretty good cut on my hand, and I went up to a pine tree and I took a big dab of pine sap and I wrapped it around my thumb, and I think I had a piece of tape or something. I just wrapped it around. My thumb healed without a scar, and it was a pretty deep cut. I didn't realize it would work that well. I had never used it before. Apparently it's extremely antiseptic. I looked it up afterwards. So there are things in our natural environment, which is another thing I wanted to say to you. You're about to come into spring. When spring comes, you've got a lot of shoots coming up of things that you can actually eat. There are some people out there who would be able to point out things that are edible, some herbalists, some nature connection teachers. I would imagine there's a number in Washington that you could access that would help you make those choices. But most people can identify dandelion leaves. Fresh dandelion leaves are full of nutrition. They're very good for your liver. The root is very good for your liver. And if you don't drink too much of it, it's not a bad coffee substitute. And the flowers themselves are also edible. You will find that if you eat wild edibles, you eat less because they are so incredibly nutrient rich. So I know for myself, in a few weeks, like probably 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be out grabbing everything I can that I know of that can eat. I also live right across the street from an herbalist, so I can ask her about questions. So
I want to go back to the idea too about calming ourselves so that we can be present to our intuition, so we can notice the resources that are around us.
That's why I was suggesting that that's your number one thing. That is the thing that kills people when they get lost in the woods. They lose their minds. There are countless stories of people. Well, I don't know if they're countless, but you'll hear the routine story of the person who drops all of their gear and dies in the woods because they panic. So wild edibles will be available shortly should you find yourself in need of them, and you may not, but if you do, that's something.
Okay, we have another comment.
Yes.
I'm using my Thieves essential oil. Also, I intercept packages at the door and leave all external packages outside. I have groceries delivered right now.
Sounds good. For as long as it lasts, that's great. If your situation changes, then you ask yourself the question, am I in harm's way here? Am I safe? Am I safe? Don't worry. If you're not safe, then you have to find another way to get some food. So I mean, again, I don't want to be part of creating the fear, but if in 3 weeks you can't buy as much food because the cupboards are bare at the various shops, it's a good idea to ration things out a little bit, maybe just be a little careful, a little conservative. And if you're in a situation to take advantage of wild edibles without choosing something that's going to make you sick, then great. I wouldn't gather dandelions off a piece of manicured lawn that gets sprayed. You have to use your head, about what you do. So
I have a question. When you spoke earlier, you talked about like calming ourselves and not overbuying or over preparing. You said, are you safe right now? And then maybe looking at about a week. Can you say a little more about the choice of a week?
I was talking about, I can't remember, I remember saying a week instead of 5 weeks for something. But I also felt, okay, if you go through a survival like chart, the first thing they'll say to you is, the first thing you need to do is calm yourself, which is the one that people speak about the least, even though it is the number one thing. Calm mind, neutral mind, just sitting down, relaxing, and then assess your resources. Resources can be people, it can be goods. Figure out what you have and what might be useful. If you pick something else, something up and you're not sure if it'll be useful, put it aside and wait. Some part of you hasn't really decided, or there's something you don't see in it yet that you will see in a day or two. You want to make sure you have enough water, because if you become dehydrated, well, first you want to make sure you have shelter, all right? But if you're already in a shelter and you're in a situation where you can do something if it gets cold, then you're okay. So if you have blankets, you have insulative materials, and you can shelter in your house, you're fine. If the next thing that you're going to have to worry about is water, because if you don't have enough water in your system for a long enough period of time, that can kill you, right? If you get dehydrated, you can end up dying faster than you'll run out of food. Most people could go without food for literally 2-3 weeks, and they won't die. They won't feel good, but they won't die from it. You have to have water, you have to have shelter, you have to have enough food so that you're comfortable, but you might not want to comfort eat. I think you guys probably get this. So when I say a period of time, right now in my house, I probably have enough food to last me, 3 weeks, If I eat conservatively, there's probably enough for me to eat for 3 weeks, maybe a little longer. As far as water goes, I have a water deficit. I need another, I'd say if I had 20 gallons in here, I'd probably feel safe. But I'm also, in my mind and in my heart, I know where to get water, and I'm comfortable going out to get water. If I was living with you right now, Laureli, I wouldn't be as concerned about water. We could have 5 gallons in the house, and if I had a filter, I'd feel like, I don't need to worry about this. This is not the thing I'm going to focus on.
I say, right, I have a spring on the land, and then there's just so many rivers. There's just so much water all around here. It's having a filter so that we can clean the water that we have around us, right? That's the big thing.
That I would have. That's something I would buy. Is anybody interested in what to do if suddenly the water goes off, so that you have a difficulty dealing with your human waste? Because I have some things I can share with you about that.
I just want to think about this too. We're recording this, and so we'll make this available as a resource. So if you want to share about that, just to make it available for others too, feel free. Yeah, someone said sure. Go ahead.
I like thieves. My chiropractor uses thieves, and he knows more than I do. And so I was just saying that seems to be a good product, although I have not personally used it. Okay. The concerns that I had were, okay, I know I'm all set with water. I know I'm all set with food. I know I have medicines in my house. I know I have batteries. I have a bunch of things. I'm going to go over those things with you. But I became concerned about, how do I deal with my waste if suddenly I can't flush my toilet for some reason? And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not anticipating that actually happening. But if it does, what I've decided that I'm going to do for the short term, and carefully I would do this. You can buy a 5-gallon, you can buy 2 5-gallon buckets at Home Depot or some hardware store, and buy the caps that will screw onto them so you can seal them. And you can make one for poop and one for urine. And what I would do is I would line them, not the urine one, but I would line the one that you're going to poop into, so that if you have to dispose, if it's a long enough time that you have to dispose of that material, you will have it in a container that you can do. So use a good quality plastic bag or 2. And then buy, cedar shavings, or hamster shavings, and a small bag of lime. And every time you use it, put that on it. When you put the cap on, don't tighten it so, if you're living with other people, don't tighten it so much that someone smaller or younger might not be able to get it off, or someone less strong. You want it to come off easily. And that'll keep the smell down. It'll keep the odor down. Wash your hands really well create a solution of stuff that you have set aside should you run out of water. and you can clean that way. So it's basically a composting system. The lime, I'm not sure how that works with the compost. If you just use cedar, that'd be enough, but I'm thinking that because you're indoors that you might want to use lime, because I think it actually would be a better product. But that was going to be my solution to that situation. I'm actually going to prepare that for myself in the next week. So
And you're living in a building.
case.
You're living in a building where you don't have a yard. A lot of people have a yard, and then they can keep things outside, right?
Yeah, if you live in a yard, so there's a couple of things to think about being in a place where you're living in a yard. First of all, yes, I live on the second floor of an apartment, a small complex, and in a city. So if I was in this situation,
Oh, and I just want to break into, someone said cedar, so they mean they didn't quite know what you meant by cedar. So yeah, shavings from like a cedar tree, cedar shavings.
Yeah, like the kind of shavings you put in a hamster tray, or sometimes you can buy bigger cedar shavings or cedar sawdust, cedar chips. You want something small because you don't want to fill up the bucket really quickly. You want something you can kind of sprinkle on it that will help with the odor and help with the keeping it down the composting process.
Right.
If you want, you can look up composting toilets online, but this is a makeshift composting system that would allow you to continue to use the bathroom without having to leave the house for something. I want to speak to digging holes in the backyard because this can be a dangerous thing. You guys, your water table is relatively high out there, I think. And so you don't want to be putting a lot of stuff into the ground. But if you're in a place where, like in a survival situation, which is what you would be in if you had no water, if you had to, you could create a makeshift composting system, or you could find a way to, like, if you literally were going to dig a hole, you'd want a hole that was relatively deep, like 3 or 4 feet, maybe 1.5 feet around, and you want to throw stuff on top of it, like lime, like cedar shavings. And I'm not suggesting that you necessarily do that because it may not be legal in your town, and it may not be perked for that. That's why we have septic systems. So
If we had something like this too, people would just need a temporary solution, so they wouldn't need to make anything that's substantial, right?
Right, and so a temporary solution might be just bagging it and closing it off and putting it somewhere where animals can't get to it. You do not want animals to get to it. They'll dig it up, they'll get sick, and they'll make a mess. You don't want that mess. So you want to make sure that whatever you do with this waste material, that it's secured in a way where nobody's going to be able to, where it's not going to make anything sick, you or anybody else. But again, remember, survival. It's a survival situation. I mean, if you were lost in the woods, you would dig a hole and go to the bathroom. That's what you would do. If you took the time to do that. Not everybody even knows to do that.
So there are tons of people that have never had to pee or poop out on the trail. So lots of people don't have experience with that necessarily.
Okay, I got it.
Great. And someone asked a question, what to use to wash or disinfect your hands that is cheap or find in nature, assuming if there isn't water and soap available.
What can you use in nature or from nature to wash your hands?
Yeah, I think I think if the question is right, if water is limited, like what are other resources we could use for that? Or cheap or find in nature. So water, alcohol currently, and then, other ideas.
I'm going through my Rolodex in my mind. I mean, definitely pine is good. Pine sap is going to be sticky on your hands, but I mean, the needles, you could infuse pine needles into water and the oil from the pine will get into the water. By infusing it, I mean, you'd go out. When I say pine, I mean evergreens. I mean, you might even be able to use juniper, although I do think, or cedar. Yeah, but I do think that the firs, spruces, pines, possibly cedar, that if you put them in water and let them sit, they will infuse into the water, and they will infuse the oils because that's the active ingredient that gives them the aroma, and you want to create that aroma because that's where the antiseptic qualities will be. I bought Pine Sol last night, and I discovered that it kills 99.9% of germs, it says. Well, so does Lysol, And I thought, well, there isn't any Lysol on the shelves. I'll buy Pine Sol, And like I said, pine is highly antiseptic because it did a heck of a job for me when I cut my hand.
Someone asked about how long the pine needs to infuse in the water to make it effective for hand cleaning.
I don't know. I wouldn't do it I don't really know the answer to that question. I wouldn't do it for an hour. If it were me, I would take it and I would bruise it or crush it like I was going to make pine needle tea. I might heat the water, perhaps even boil some water, and then I might let it steep in there after I took it off. And then I would just let it sit there for a day or two. And I suspect that it would be quite antiseptic. If you had a little bit of, like, let's say you had a little bit of ivory soap, I might throw that in there too, you know, I mean, just you're making a very, a solution. And I would pack a fair amount of pine in there. You know, if I had like a little gallon bucket, I might fill it half with pine needles and the rest with water, and it'll turn green, I would imagine. And
I'm looking at what plants naturally make soaps, so that's part of what you're doing. And it does mention things like cedar wood and rosewood,
well, I'm just
yucca,
saying,
and things like that too.
where you live, you have a lot of evergreen trees, and they have oil in them, and that oil is antiseptic. And so if you use that, it will help. There are other things that you could use as well. And I am so sorry, but right now it's escaping me. I have used things, sage. Sage is highly antiseptic as well. I mean, you literally could chew sage or crush sage and rub it on a cut, and it will, it's antiseptic.
And
I
I
would
just want
imagine
to clarify too, right? These are general wilderness techniques. These are not specifically like we've tested against certain viruses and we know that it'll like kill the virus, et cetera. But these are general tools that can be useful.
that is correct. I'm not saying that they will kill anything per se. I've read no research regarding that. But as far as the sage goes, I know that people will drink sage tea on the prairies. People used to drink sage tea for colds, you know, they didn't feel well.
Well-
And so sage is also very antiseptic. Again, you're talking about an aromatic plant. That aroma apparently many aromatic plants tend to be apparently antiseptic.
Let's say
So-
just one person wrote a comment. Just thank you so much. I'm such a city slicker. This is great education. So just that
Cool.
people are sharing these kinds of things. So let's see. So you talked about water and you talked about supplies and like food and looking at sources of water and like how much food to have and eating lightly so that, right, we can stretch out the resources if we need to. And you talked about peeing and pooping, right, if we don't have water. Are there any other like basic needs that we might have, you know, and some ideas you
Light.
have around that?
So when people, I don't know about you guys, but if I was sitting in a dark apartment it's getting lighter out, thank God, which is really wonderful. But if I was sitting in a dark apartment during a pandemic, I might get a little uncomfortable. I'd be practicing my calm me down skills. But so having some emergency candles is useful. Having batteries and backup lights, if you have storm lights with or oil lamps, those are great. You know, something to warm up the place more than you're going to sit and read a book by, but something to warm up the place so that you feel a little more comfortable. Now, all that said, use your head, don't burn the house down. The only reason I say this stuff is because, not because you don't already know this, but because it's like the disclaimer, you know, I mean, I'm going to use candles and my oil lamps, you know, but
If we're using
yeah.
tools that we're not used to using, there might be some like careful measures, you know, carrying measures that we're not thinking of in the moment, and particularly if we're scared, right? So that goes back again to calming ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing you're going to do first is, I really believe that the number one thing that people need to do in this time, in this place, in light of what we're going through, is they need to accept the fact that their lives are not going to be normal for a while. You know, you have to like recognize that the discomfort you're carrying in your body is because you can't have what you want. I mean, that's why I'm feeling this way. I can't do exactly what I want. And I'm used to, I mean, within reason, I'm kind of used to, you know, coming and going and doing my business. And I don't have to worry about the checks getting into my account and stuff like that. I mean, I can't do that right now. There are things that are happening right now that could seriously impact me. And if I worry about that, I will not be calming myself so that I can look around and remember what it is that I need to have in the house. So that discomfort you're feeling in your body is partly this discomfort of your mind not liking to have to change your habits for a short period of time. But when you think about the larger picture, that this is because you want to keep yourself and your friends and your loved ones safe, it's worth it. you guys might have animals too. Is everybody making sure that they have an extra bag of kibble or two around, you know? Like,
And again,
that's
not buying so much, but buying a little bit more.
yeah, I mean, you know, I don't have a dog or a cat right now, but if I did, I'd probably have a month's supply for my animal, you know, because I want my animal to be safe and well, you know? So that's just another thing to think about.
Maybe we say, so that's where, right, the whole of like not 5 weeks out, but a week, but then like you might have extra for your animals. So kind of, I have to say we're gauging, right? So if everyone goes out and gets all the animal food, right, it's just to lead to some scarcity on the shelf again too. So how to balance that.
And again, there'll come a time where it is likely that there'll come a time where it will be hard to get goods for a while because we'll just have gone through everything. But that won't last. So if and when that happens, the first thing you should remind yourself of is this is a temporary state. This situation will be solved within a relatively short period of time, and it will not negatively impact me in a way that is serious. It may negatively impact me, but it won't make me sick, it won't kill me, I'll be fine. That should be your mantra. Because it's true, you know. They'll eventually have products back up on the shelves.
All right, great. Any other questions just before we finish up?
I'm trying to think of anything else that would be important for me to tell you. I mean, the biggest message I wanted to get across to you is that what I'm discovering in my own life is that because I can't do the things I planned on doing, and I have to really rein back in my expectations for my life right in the moment. Like I just can't do what I want to do. That I'm uncomfortable with my uncomfortableness, so I'm having to do more practice than normal. And so that reminded me, oh yeah, that's survival. Keep your head. You know, like I got stopped on the road one time because I ran out of gas. It's happened to all of us probably. And I had to be someplace in that moment. And I got out of the car and I said, this is what's happening right now. And in that moment, it occurred to me, when you're in a survival situation, that is what's happening. Nothing else is happening. You can't go anywhere. You are there. So what's there? Enjoy what's there. There may come a time 6 months from now where you're like, gosh, I wish I could go back to that week where all I had to do was sit and relax, you know? I mean, I think you guys probably have had those moments of realization yourselves. So, and I'm going to stop for the moment. Any more questions? You're getting curious.
People saying thank you. They're appreciating your perspective and wisdom. Very interesting. Someone said mindful of non-isolation. We need to find alternative ways to connect with others. You're getting more thank yous from people.
I want to say to you, as far as connection goes with other people, if you've seen those pictures of people in Italy who are standing out on their balconies and singing with each other, that's an intimate kind of connection, and they're not afraid because you're not going to get the disease from that. You can stand in your yard and talk to your neighbor. You can stand within 10 feet of another person in all likelihood and talk to them without probably getting sick. There's ways to reach out and to actually assuage each other through this common human connection, you know? And there was a time when that's how people actually did recreate. Now we do other things, but yeah, so just a thought. Don't isolate, reach out to people. And I'm not gonna say don't do anything because I don't think I have a right to tell you what to do. Do what you wanna do. Do what you feel you should do. Do what makes you comfortable and makes you calmer. But for myself, I'm trying to spend less time on the social forums where people are really afraid, because then I start to get afraid. And when I remember to take what I need from that and then back off, I'm better off. The more time that I actually spend with just a few people or outdoors. I mean, maybe you should work on your lawn right now, you know? Spring's coming. Maybe you should have a block party where everybody stays in their yard and yells to each other.
We have community and connection, and we're more than 6 feet apart, and we're focused on other things that are good to be doing.
Well, and yeah, and the thing is, like, when I say 6 feet apart, that's what they're telling me. I got that off the news. As a survivalist, I'm more or less saying, I'm keeping my immune system up. That's what I'm doing. And I'm trusting in the universe that if I keep myself in a positive place, that I am going to be where I'm supposed to be for my highest good and the highest good of all the people I know. And I want to say, look, I've probably forgotten some things, but, and as far as I wanted to say, like, you might want to have more than a week's worth of water in your house, as I said. But, and when I say that, I don't mean a week for bathing. I mean a week for drinking and possibly cooking a few things.
We're doing minimum things.
Right. I want to say that if I think of anything, I will send that information to Laureli. Anything I've forgotten, because chances are I've forgotten something.
Well, the other thing is, I may, if you're comfortable with this, right, we could put this up on YouTube, and that could be a place where you could put additional comments and things like that also.
Yeah, keep in mind, like, also, like, basics, like, you should have some first aid things in your house. I think I already said that. Bandages, antiseptic, you know, normal kinds of things you'd have in a first aid kit, and a few medicines. Maybe some people take Advil. I have in the past.
I did hear one thing, that ibuprofen is not a good thing to take right now, that they're recommending Tylenol instead. But again, I have not researched that. I don't know what it is about ibuprofen that's not a good idea with coronavirus. But.
Well, thank you for saying that. I was not aware of that. That's helpful to know. I mean, there are also natural painkillers out there too, like
turmeric.
Well, anti-inflammatories for sure, but there's actually painkillers. Willow is one. But so yeah, just remember that part. That I apologize. I've forgotten what I was going to say.
No, it's great. And do you want to share your contact info also, so people can find you?
That's what I was going to say. If you have questions, just write me an email, and if I don't know the answer, I'll try to refer you to somebody else. I can tell you about my experience and what I know, and that's it.
Well, I know you're at wayofthewild.org.
Well, yeah, but I should put my email down. It'll be easier for folks. Do you? Can I put that in the chat? Would that help?
Yeah, sure. You can put it in the chat, and then we can read it out too. And Athena, she's mentioning, right? CBD, turmeric, thyme. Mm-hmm.
Where does it say? Where do I type? I'm so sorry.
So are you in the chat? At the bottom of the chat, usually you can type.
To everyone. There we go. Sorry.
Yep, that's great. But I know wayofthewild.org, so WAYOFTHEWILD.org.
The other thing I will say to people is, I know people in town here, and I avail myself to them. People who I know that if I go to, they're really good energy workers, and they can help calm me down. If you're having trouble calming yourself down, you need somebody to work on you, reach out to the people that know how to do it. I do it, but other people do it as well. I mean, I'm sure you know other people that can work on you in this way. And if you know how to do this for other people, it's not a bad idea to offer it as well.
Well, Christine was mentioning that she's been offering meditation for people, right? So I do things that are fear melters, fear antidotes. So I'm teaching a class, but it's a while away. So I might offer something online coming up. So a lot of different people. Yeah, so Mary's email, I'm just going to call it out for the recording. So it's mmsweeney, that's mmsweeney @earthlink.net. And I mentioned wayofthewild.org. Great.
Yeah, be a light in the world, guys. Don't be afraid. And if you are afraid, admit your fear and have it, see it as opposed to being it. We're in a position to actually help. Right now, and I did post this on my Facebook page, there are people out there that think that to some extent this is an attempt to, it's just not, it is nature, okay? It's a natural phenomenon, but it's also perhaps in that it's a virus. But how it actually got into our environment is under debate. And a lot of people are fearful that this has been done to us. And this morning I finally ran across somebody who said, it doesn't matter how it happened. What we have to do is we have to envision a different future. Don't let them be the ones that dominate the dialogue and take us in a direction that we don't want to go. Because we're powerful people, and we can come together and change the direction we're being taken. So that's my last message to you. I invite you to stand with me in that because we're all equal in this, okay? And I thank you for coming. I didn't know that it was going to turn into a large group like this. I'm whatever I was offering you that could be helpful to you, I'm appreciative that you're able to receive it, and contact me at any time if you need something more. If I can help you, I will.
It's great. Thank you so much, Mary. So glad we were able to reach so many people.
You're welcome.
All right.
Have a
Take
good
take
day.
care, everyone.